Today we are going to help show you how to supercharge your customer experience insights with session replay integrations. Before we get started, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Marshall and I'm a Senior Solutions Consultant here at Tealium. Now, the challenge today that we're going to be talking about is how organizations purchase session replay vendors to understand key behaviors and experiences beyond what's traditionally tracked through web analytics. However, gaps in analysis can occur when done in a silo, meaning the data doesn't natively provide visibility across browsers, devices, and more importantly, offline engagements. So now enter a world where the Universal Data Hub and the session replay vendors like Quantum Metric come together to provide standardized and enriched data to improve overall understanding of consumer behaviors. In this Challenger video, we will show you how the Tealium and Quantum Metric integration started from a simple tag and is rapidly expanding. So as I mentioned, we started with a simple tag integration where Quantum Metric is available in our tag marketplace. And in order for us to start working with Quantum Metric, we want to start associating or assigning data points to our data layer, such as the Quantum Metric replay URL, the user ID, and the session ID. That tag then gets fired and pushes data into the Universal Data Hub, where two things can happen. That raw clickstream data can either be sent for every event to include Quantum Metric data such as the replay URL, the user ID, or the session ID, or it can be persisted at the individual visitor profile in what we call attributes. And these attributes are basically ways to enrich that visitor's profile, where we can start to collect the replay URLs, the user ID, and session ID, and account for other behaviors such as omni-channel purchases as well. Ultimately, organizations can own all of this data, whether it's the raw event level data or the audience level data, but it helps to complete an overall data supply chain from the customer engagement through the customer ownership. Now let's go ahead and show you how that we solve this challenge via Tealium. So this is Tealium IQ, the enterprise tag management solution, and this is the first area where we need to start to really add in the data that we discussed previously. So this is the data layer where we've added in the Quantum Metric replay URL, user ID, and session ID. And subsequently, what we can do is now go ahead and implement the Quantum Metric tag. This is just another tag from the Tealium Tag Marketplace. It's a 3-step process, and it helps to allow you to quickly deploy a Quantum Metric on your site. And then it also, on the Quantum Metric side, allows you to tap into the Tealium data layer to easily leverage a lot of the data that you've already standardized for so many other vendors that you're going to be implementing through Tealium IQ. So it's a win-win for both solutions. But to deploy this tag, we're going to need a few pieces of information. It's going to be the subscription name. We will toggle the send replay URL to be able to pass over the replay URL into the Universal Data Hub. And then that information will be passed to our Tealium account and profile that we indicate. And again, we can configure load rules and go ahead and map over data from our data layer to the custom destinations for Quantum Metrics specifically. So once that first step is complete, we can really move on to the second step, which is actually persisting this information to the visitor profile. So in order to start building up attributes about visitors, we need to first bring in data into the Universal Data Hub. And for the purpose of our conversation today, we're really focused on omni-channel shoppers. So we're looking at bringing data from our Tealium e-commerce website, which is directly connected to Tealium IQ, our tag management solution, as well as data from a point of sale, which is going to be simulated by an API call using our HTTP API. So now that we have data coming into the hub, we need to start identifying and enriching that visitor profile through the creation of what we call attributes. And so if I filter out by this label I've created for Quantum Metric, you'll see that ultimately we're going to be able to build up a badge to identify our omni-channel purchasers, which is made up of 2 Booleans for offline purchase identification and online purchase identification. Now, in addition, we're also creating a set of strings, which is going to capture the user ID, the session ID, and the Quantum Metric replay URL. Now let's go ahead and look at all of this being enriched in real time. We're going to start by utilizing a tool called Tealium Trace. This is going to allow us to go to our e-commerce demo site and simulate the enrichments in real time. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the trace ID, trace myself as a new visitor, and start the trace. Now, what you're going to see is events coming through in real time here. And I'll be explaining these as they come in. So far we've came to the website and there's been 2 events, and the one that I want to focus on is the Quantum Metric replay URL. Now this is a Tealium event that I set up, and it's green because it is a valid specification. Now what that means is I said when this event occurs, I expect the URL and the ID to be present. If they are, it will be indicated as valid. If one of these were missing, this event specification would be invalid, and immediately in real time you would be able to go and come up with a solution for the issue and at least know that you need to pay attention to something versus having gaps in your data. Now, because we're looking for omni-channel purchasers, the next thing that we want to simulate here is the fact that I've purchased online previously. So in order to show that, I'm going to just log into my account. And upon logging in, you'll see that I have a dashboard of all the products that I've recently purchased today. So based on the fact that I've purchased before, I'm now going to have a Boolean set to true that I've been an online purchaser previously, which is the first step in us being able to assign that omni-channel purchaser badge ultimately. Now, the one thing that I want to call out is that when I sent through some of those events, specifically when I logged in, we noticed that there's a visitor stitching event where it found previous profiles that it had for me as Elizabeth.Marshall, and it was able to stitch them all together in real time. When it stitched those profiles together in real time, it went ahead and enriched them. And so if we look down at the attributes modified, specifically at Quantum Metric and the user ID, session ID, and replay URL, you'll see that I have way more than one session ID or way more than one replay URL. So from an analysis perspective, this is definitely giving you that cross-browser, cross-domain, cross-customer experience to know here are all the sessions associated with this user, so it helps you understand their interactions with the brand more appropriately. Now, because we only have half of our equation, the other half that we need is that offline purchase. So in order to simulate the offline purchase, I'm going to utilize a tool called Postman to send through an API call. So the only thing that I need to update with this API call is my Tealium Trace ID, so we're able to visualize this event coming through. But essentially this is going to be passing data into my account profile. It's going to be calling out that this is that API data source that we talked about up front, and it's going to be sending through that offline purchase event and passing over my customer email because I gave this information to them at the point of sale checkout process. Again, this is going to be key because it's a way that we stitch the offline and the online together in this example. So now that I sent that event through, we should see that coming in. And so again, you see this event received. The profile was enriched. The profile was stitched. And then there was one final enrichment after that stitching where we replayed all of the events. And ultimately, I ended up joining that omni-channel purchaser audience that I've created. Okay. And now the other thing that I'd like to call out is anything that we do within the Universal Data Hub can be syndicated out across all of our vendors. In this case, I had one action that was processed where I sent this information directly to a Google Sheet. But think about your entire marketing or your entire, company data infrastructure. Internal systems, external systems, everybody can be receiving the same data set. So it's a key value of Tealium. Now, the one thing I'd like to go and show you, though, specific to the session replay vendors is within Quantum Metric, if I go ahead and refresh, and I look at this user, you'll see that there is a number of events and other things assigned here. So there's reload events, there's uncaught exception, and then right here you have this online offline shopper. Again, the nice integration between Quantum Metric and Telium is they can easily tap into our visitor data points and be able to now overlay this attribute that we created with my session engagement. And so if we actually look at this specific user, which is me, you'll see all of the specific events that occurred in order for me to get that the online offline shopper badge assigned.